The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't undo your last hire. The human postponer. They were the master of one phrase. I'll circle back on that. But 3 months later, you were the one doing all their work and wondering how big that circle is. But LinkedIn Hiring Pro can take the hiring load off your plate by automating the hiring busy work from the initial job post to scheduling interviews. Hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
This summer, Prime Video takes you back before Legally Blonde, before law school, and into the world of Elle Woods in high school. Set in 1995, this Gemini vegetarian knows exactly who she is until her family moves from Bel Air to Seattle. Packed with iconic fashion, 90s nostalgia, and a throwback soundtrack, Elle proves one thing. Law school was hard. High school was harder. From the world of Legally Blonde, watch Elle, a new original series only on Prime Video. Watch now.
Hey there, quick reminder, we are still running the Grit System Game Jam, the first one ever, through August 25th. There are third-party commercial-friendly licenses for all of our games and for the Grit System itself. It's perfect if you have a cool adventure game idea you've been working on, or want to hack something weird and use a bunch of dice that generally aren't d20s, or hey, maybe you want to bring a d20 to Grit, whatever. Check out stillfleet.com/gamejam2026, bring your cool ideas by August 25th, and guest judges, not us, but guest judges will award prizes, including some modest cash prizes and the chance of getting a published zine. So please reach out with any questions. We're really excited to see what you do. Thanks so much.
Welcome to Why We Roll,
A tabletop role-playing game design podcast by the Stillfleet Studio.
We're your hosts, Chris Pickett, creator of the historical fantasy game Danse Macabre,
And Wythe Marschall, creator of the political sci-fi game Stillfleet.
Through the show, we hope to amplify new creative voices.
We chat with different indie TTRPG designers, talking through a range of questions that are pertinent to many designers, players, and GMs.
We hope to showcase fresh and even challenging ideas about what makes imagination-based games so powerful.
Before we introduce today's guest, a reminder. If you enjoy this episode, please consider supporting the show and all of our games over at patreon.com/Stillfleet.
Okay, let's find out why we roll.
My favorite dance, the room tone dance. That's right, you're listening to a podcast. This podcast is Why We Roll, the tabletop game design podcast and stream of the Stillfleet Studio. As ever, I'm one of the two hosts, Wythe Marschall, and joined with me as ever is my intrepid co-host.
Oh, hey, what's up? It's me, Chris Pickett. How are you doing, everybody? That was a weird way to say hi. Hey, what's up, everyone? Hey, this is my podcast voice. There we go. All right, we're in it. Let's go.
Oh, hello there, Chris.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you.
You may
there.
be wondering why sometimes people on a podcast speak differently. Yeah, we're joined today by a great guest. We're really excited to speak to. We've been waiting on this one for a few months, so thanks patiently, Mel, for waiting on our queue of wonderful TTRPG indie designers. And we're so excited to chat about your work and the nerds who buy your work. Take it from there. So Mel of Meldar16, could you give us a little introduction? Tell the folks who you are.
So I'm Mel from Meldar16. I am the artist, writer, printer, not so much marketing, but owner of Meldar16. Make weird and goofy indie RPGs that range from fantasy to murder mystery and sci-fi. We try to keep everything pretty packaged, so everything's kind of easy to pick up and run with. We kind of started doing our little indie one-shot type things because we got tired of our gaming groups always one person being like, oh, I can't make it tonight. And then it's like, well, what do we do now? We can't continue this campaign. So I guess it's canceled. We got tired of that. So we're like, all right, let's just make one-shots and stuff for everyone that, you can just like pick up and play, easy to learn. My partner, Sean, is also a co-writer and does a lot of the like, loudmouth at shows, because I'm very much I'll create it, but then I'm not like, people are scary.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
They definitely can be. But yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a little bit of division of labor, have someone who's more on the marketing side of things, while you get to more concentrate on the craft of it all, which is quite nice.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, disagree, but shout out to Sean anyway. Big Sean, big up for holding down Meldar16 on the marketing side. So
Right,
that's
yeah.
great that you can work together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, based in South Philly, we like to try to control the means of production. So got 4 printers, which I've nicknamed the 4 printers of the apocalypse. And they live up to their names. We've got Ep son of Satan, Ep son of a bitch, Ep son of a gun, and Ep son of Sam. We also have the giant paper guillotine of the proletariat. And we just bought, which haven't really dived into it yet, but a giant thermal binding machine.
Oh.
Whoa.
So we're going to be able to start doing some soft cover stuff instead of just ring binding.
Ooh.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So wait, so you might be the first person on this show who's totally making all your own stuff. Because I saw the ring binding and thought that was just like a flex, like I'm going to make it ring bound and ask for that. But you're literally ring binding it by hand because you up until now didn't have the paper perfect binding solution. So yeah, I have a lot of nerdy print questions, but I'm sorry, we don't have to go there yet. We can get around to it.
Well, maybe before we get into nerdy, particular technical print questions, which I'm also excited to get into, just want to note that one of our kind of traditional kind of opening questions that I'm going to salvo at you here, Mel, is how did you get into TTRPGs? Like, what's your history with the hobby, and how did it move from being a hobby into something that you're doing, professionally, semi-professionally, however you want to frame it? But how did you start printing your own books at home?
I came into the tabletop gaming world later on in life. I didn't start playing until 2020. Well, a little before 2020, but 2020 was kind of when it like picked up the most, having a lot of extra time on your hands. It started with a Curse of Strahd campaign for D&D 5e, and it was one of those things where our DM offered us to betray the party, and we wholeheartedly jumped in on it, and it backfired on us, and then it ended up creating like this whole other scenario. And after that, we all took turns running our own games. So, because there's always the forever DM, and we're like, we're going to share this burden. And it got to my turn, and I showed up to the first session with 70 pages of notes and like 40 fully painted gouache illustrations. And
super chill prep.
Yep, right. Yep. And like everyone else would like show up with like a sticky note with like 2 things written on it. And I'm like, I don't know how you do that. But so pretty much everyone was like, we got to do something with this. So we ran through it, and it ended up becoming our first release, Our Lady of Chaos, which is like under the Terra Redux collection, which is like our like 5e stuff. And then from there started doing zines for like 5e, and we would always like supplement in other stats, like indie stats. So we would do like mazes stats and like fate stats and Morkborg, Troika. And we had a toner printer, brother printer, and that's what I used to start printing everything. And I literally worked that thing until it exploded and caught fire. And then we were like, all right, well, we've obviously it's run its course. So we started looking into like echo tanks and stuff like that, and like slowly built up. But then being able to have access to color ink, that also opened up like a whole new world. We did try on-demand printing for a short time, but after like multiple failed, prints where you just get like 10 pages that were just black. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not the map. That's not this picture, So we decided that it would be best to be able to do it ourselves. And like that put a lot on my plate, but I was like, all right, let's do it. I used to do indie comics before that. And, so I just kind of like went from that to, just shift gears and stuff. And yeah, Meldar16 was my art handle forever. So, I just was like, well, might as well just make that the company name. And yeah.
Well, that brings us to a question we said we were going to ask, which is why Meldar16? Why not, Mel, okay, that part.
Yeah, that makes
Dar.
sense. Yeah, Mel.
Yeah.
Mel,
Yeah. Tell us all about it. Yeah.
Where's the Dar from?
Right. Back in the day, I used to bartend at El Camino Royale in Fishtown or Northern Liberties. I guess it's Northern Liberties.
Somewhere in Philadelphia for folks
in
not
Philly.
in the tri-state area.
And my roommate at the time also worked there, and our manager, they both one day were just like, Meldar. And I was like, oh, yeah, I like that nickname. And it kind of stuck. And then like I just started being like, all right, yeah, Meldar, that's going to be my new name. And it took on a life of its own, and 16 is my birth date. So I was like, well, gotta throw in a number. So, which is funny because we now do stuff like we've been starting to try to put like D16s into our game systems and stuff like that. So we are like trying to utilize it as a concept as well. But yeah, just a nickname that I really liked, and it probably is from Jimmy Neutron.
And before we started recording, I just did a flat Google search for Meldar. As I've looked at your website before. I've gone through your catalog and everything like that. And I was like, well, how hard could it be to find, just Meldar? Who's named that? Yeah, there's a Jimmy Neutron villain, apparently. I had no idea. Voiced by somebody famous.
Right. I know there's also the Where No Fan Has Gone Before episode of Futurama. It's Melvar, which, with 3 L's, I think he says. But
very importantly. Yeah, Meldar in Jimmy Neutron is voiced by the one and only drug mule, Tim Allen.
What?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, man. That's the random fact for this episode, I guess, is that Meldar.
Nickelodeon.
Yeah, man, they were on something.
Right.
Wait, the random fact is not that Tim Allen was a drug mule? Because
No, I thought that was like a commonly known thing. Yeah, he got busted in the 70s for flying in with a bunch of cocaine.
okay.
Yeah, that was before his comedy career kicked off. Anyway,
before Tool Time or whatever.
Yeah, before Home Improvement, before the stand up,
Yep.
he was a drug runner, not a mule, a runner. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Tim Allen and his history of illegal activities.
New podcast theme.
Right.
So
God.
So you formed Meldar16 to take some of your interest in indie gaming and make some cool books. And as we just discovered, you're doing it all yourself, including the printing and binding, which is really, really, really a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a ton of labor.
Shout out to Brother. Those printers are way better than non-Brother printers from the little we've done. But man, really annoying all the way down. So you said you have 4 big machines and you have a new one for the perfect binding, and presumably you have like a more manual thing for the ring binding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many do you make at a time, if you don't mind? Like, can you take us through how that got so out of hand? Was that also from indie comics? Like, were you making pretty substantial indie comics? Because some of your books, I mean, like, I Got a Knife is 60 pages. That's that's a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
To like punch,
Yeah, it does get like, a bit monotonous sometimes, and like I've had like friends or family be like, oh, I'll help you, just tell me what to do, and I'm like, no, because I will just be like hovering, micromanaging, being like, you're not doing it right, like just get out of here, but for most of the indie comics we would send away to print, I did print a couple ones myself, but it kind of was just something more like at that point in time, it was just easier to like send it away. But with, so for example, like I got a knife. I was just like re-upping our stock today for Game Face Con. And I printed, so we try to keep around like 30 copies of everything on hand. And, between the 4 printers, if they're deciding to all work, I could print like 15 copies a day. But then then the cutting and everything like that. But over time, like it gets pretty streamlined. Like I've learned, what things work best for which of the, issues. And a couple of our games are just 1-page RPGs. So that's very nice to just have to like fold that in half and, put the little insert in. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it takes up a lot of my time, I guess. But that's what, comes with being able to like quality control and everything. So.
And control the means of production, which is rad
Mm-hmm.
because we're also leftist, specifically tabletop game design podcast. So it's very cool that you have the top to bottom control and can price things more down to the page.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of people who are doing this in RPGs because it is mad annoying. But I do remember
Yeah, right.
legendary comic artist whom I got to meet and I think is really cool, Michelle Fifi, who did Copra, did this. So Michelle Fifi legendarily out of his Brooklyn apartment like did Copra himself by hand, all of it, like all the printing, everything, and only later got the distribution deal, and then that basically sucked. And then he went back to like doing everything by hand, even though he was already famous. But it was like, when he's like, yeah, I priced it out and it like takes me X amount of time per day. Just like you said, I can do this many things per day. I can draw this much, print this much, and sell this much, put this much postage. And it's like, if you just do that, that's like your full-time job and you give yourself very set hours. He's like, I knew I could make a certain amount. Then it's on me to sell it. But like, and it's a way better margin, obviously, than going through Image or whatever. But it's interesting because I think for many of us, it's not just like, could I physically do that? Which is already like kind of crazy, but it's very impressive. But also the time thing. So it is a lot of time and quality control, as you said. So it's cool that you've been able to like keep that going and presumably like refine it and figure out strategies that work for you. And congrats on perfect binding. I feel like perfect binding is a big, like that's a step.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because it definitely came in what I can only claim is a coffin. And I was like, oh, this is just very like telling me my future right now. Like just trying to troubleshoot and get this like to learn this machine's gonna kill me.
Well, you can keep the box that it came in. And then when it does eventually inevitably kill you, there you go. You're saving money right there.
Right. Bury me in a giant Vivor box. I got it.
That feels very Cronenbergian and very art, as like you come back as like a vampire of ink, like it's kind of like a Revenant Reanimator, but it's based on perfect binding and not inkjet. What's it called? Laser printing.
Right. And I'll just constantly be like, just feeling all the paper types. Be like, oh, this paper quality is very nice, but this one isn't.
The gram and tooth of every single paper type. That's your special power that you come back to life with.
Right.
Yeah, it is fun. It is fun looking at that stuff. This came up for us with Danse Macabre because we hadn't done foil, and that's been, boy, that's old journey. Hot foil stamping.
Oh, yeah.
Which sounds like, to me, like a jazz standard, like hot foil stamping. That's a song that everyone knows from 1940. Yep. But it is really variable. The color looks really different because it's really, you can't really take a picture of it. You just kind of have to see it.
Yeah.
Because it reflects, it's like a mirror, so it's like a weird, like, what tone is this is not something that's easy to convey in digital proofs the way that with straight printing now you can kind of get a good sense. We've printed a couple zines. It's going to, kind of be that color. So it's interesting each technique you get, and you have to QA and you have to make sure you're not throwing money down the hole. The more you can kind of get into it, and it's fun, but it's also like, it's another time suck. It's another thing to learn. So I imagine, Mel, you've probably learned quite a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to ask about some of your game design, so we can continue to talk about production, but also like what are some of the games you've been putting out in different handmade fashions. I don't know where we should start. I know you did the sort of 5e piece.
Yeah, there's a Terra Redux. But yeah, I mean, you've got an extensive catalog. You got Beans, the flammable fruit. You got I Got a Knife, Cosmonauts and Crystal Balls. I mean, you're all over the place as far as genre goes. But yeah, like Wythe was saying, I'm just piggybacking on this. What does your catalog look like? What is your what kind of inspires you from game to game?
So, I mean, pretty much like Greek and Roman mythology, like inspires a lot of the fantasy style stuff. So like most of the Terra Redux stuff, you know, obviously like the goddess of chaos in Our Lady of Chaos is inspired by, you know, a Greco-Roman goddess of chaos, you know, and a lot of the creatures in it are, you know, creatures that you find in that kind of mythology. And then obviously sci-fi is a big influence. I don't know if you can tell behind me, I got a lot of Star Trek plates.
Yeah, I love those Star Trek plates.
Yeah, we Sean and I are both like huge Trekkies. We actually met at like a Star Trek thing, and we like have combined our collections. So we have like a whole like display up in the studio with all like our Star Trek stuff. But you know, I feel like sci-fi is like either like tends to go, yeah, nice.
Dear podcast listener, Chris just held up a Star Trek The Next Generation object.
It's my Jean-Luc Picard t-shirt that I can't wear anymore because it's got too many holes in it and I'm scared it's going to disintegrate. Anyway.
Yeah. Right. I have a Dr. McCoy shirt like that I just have folded up, and I'm like, you just need to keep existing. Yeah. So I can't wear you anymore.
Just keep existing. I have thought very, very seriously about just framing this t-shirt, getting one of those like cardboard backs, putting it on that, and then putting it in a frame, because I love the shirt so much. But yeah, it's like if I wear it and wash it one more time, it's gonna just be threads basically.
Yep. Yeah. I wholeheartedly support the framing it though. So.
Sweet. Decision made. Thank you, Mel.
No problem. But yeah, I feel like a lot of times like sci-fi games tend to be really dark, and you know, that's totally fine. Like made collaborated with Roderick from Ailwood Games on a Mothership, you know, little one shot, and that was great and fun. But also sometimes it's like, you know, don't want a sci-fi game that's like necessarily always going to be, you know, gloom and doom. So, you know, we took some ideas like Cosmonauts Crystal Balls. It's space and magic. Are they going to work together? Are they going to bump heads? Like, you know, and that's like a more collaborative kind of storytelling based one where, you know, it's not just on the DM to like come up with everything. Like everyone playing kind of like helps build the world and everything. And then I Got a Knife, our murder mystery. I love Columbo.
Hell yeah.
I feel like there's not a day that goes by that I do not watch an episode of Columbo, which I'm pretty sure Sean is probably like, please just stop it. Stop. But that like was one of the big inspirations for I Got a Knife. Also just like in general love murder mysteries. And
big same. Yeah.
Right. It's good. And like Murder, She Wrote, you know, I still don't know how Cabot Cove isn't the most deadly city in the world. But you know, we won't go into that.
Yeah, it beats out St. Louis by a hair.
Right. But yeah.
Well, maybe we could go into I Got a Knife as an example of your game design. And of course, you have other games, but this uses the die versus die system, right?
Yep.
And maybe you can tell us a little about Die versus Die as a system and I Got a Knife as a game, because it touches on some of the things you were just mentioning about, you know, whodunits. And I'm also just curious to kind of hear how you went about, so that's something we talk about a lot on the show, is like mechanical design and how that's different from, you know, game design once you have a mechanic, and then that's different from like sort of adventure design or scenario design. And here you have, you know, a standalone book that really it has all of that by you basically. So it really is nice that you're doing like everything soup to nuts, as they say, including printing the books. So yeah, walk us through I Got a Knife.
So Diverse Die is essentially like the idea behind it kind of came about because both like friends and family members would like look at all of our dice and be like, do you really use all those dice? And it was some were like, well, I mean, like some of them you use a lot of, but like, like maybe we can like think of a way that, we can use them all. So we worked on the system. Essentially, your dice set acts as like a full health meter. And when you attempt to do things, you roll with your highest dice. And then if it succeeds, you get to keep that dice. If not, you then drop down to the next lowest one. The flip side to that is you're always just rolling against another dice roll. So even if you're down to your D4, like there's still hope, and you might not even be rolling against a D20. You could also be rolling against like a D6, depending on the challenge type. And then whoever wins the roll, whether it's the DM or the player, they get to kind of narrate the outcome of the situation. So that also like brings in like the narrative storytelling aspect where everyone's, able to be a part of the story building, and it's not just like one person dealing with everything. And then with I Got a Knife, we did it where, we sprinkle clues around, and then we like kind of give ways on like how, if you want to like keep, it going like Murder, She Wrote, where there's a murder every week. We give hints on how to sprinkle the clues around, depending on the party size, how to like up or lower the difficulties of things. And we kept it so that, you get the rule set. There's stuff for just the players. There's stuff for just who's running the game. We put in a whole town setting and then threw in one murder, to be like, solve this. And then if you want, keep going. We did a lot of our stuff. We use Esperanto for like names and stuff. So
I love Esperanto so much.
Right. It was funny. We were actually at Too Many Games last year, and someone came up to us and was just like, is this an Esperanto? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, oh my goodness, that's so crazy. And we're like, yeah, someone finally noticed.
That's awesome. I'm thinking of Gattaca, Wythe, if you remember.
I do. I also thought, now when I hear Esperanto, my Pavlovian association with it is
it's Gattaca.
Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, it's Ethan Hawke and Gattaca for sure. And a little bit of Uma Thurman sprinkled in for good
bad
measure.
Sociobiology. But yeah, no, Esperanto itself is rad. Esperanto is a liberatory project.
Super interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Even if co-opted by one 90s movie. So that's super cool. And yeah, I got it. So the system is really cool.
Yeah.
I would like to play it. I've not played it, but it does remind me of some of the things I like about obviously our own system, but other systems that use dice as scores. And it reminds me of something I think John McGuire did with a zombie game too, where you have degrading dice types. So you start with the higher dice type. Mm-hmm. Whenever the zombies hit you, it goes down by one. And when it runs out or whatever, you're turned to a zombie. And I think that was a fun way to kind of give the players, right, like you said, there's always some hope. You could sort of always win if you get the highest value, but obviously as it goes down and down and down, it's harder and harder.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's fun to, it might be fun to sort of design for that and explore those ranges of, from D20 to D4 versus each other, which is different from a D20 game or D100 game. It's different from our games, which basically don't, they issue the D20 for the most part. Mm. So I think it's interesting to think about those different just number ranges and how they play out.
Do you have a D16 in the range, though? That's really the question.
Like in my physical range?
No,
or
in the game.
Oh, okay.
Like in the game. Yeah.
Actually, so we didn't have it for I Got a Knife, but our recent one-page RPG Loser, we started using the D16 in with that. So essentially, as a player, the dice you roll is a D16. And all the other dice are for like the different like levels of, so like the D20 would be like the big bad. And then all other NPCs would be D16s. And then like traps and other hazards, depending on their difficulty, would be, any of those ranges. Yeah, so Loser is just it's a sci-fi workplace game where essentially you're just trying not to get fired. Management has decided to force lasers into everything, whether it's useful or not.
This sounds
And
oddly familiar.
right.
Yeah.
And pretty much with each task, like you roll to see whether the laser is going to be beneficial or a hindrance. And then all the like plot hooks and scenarios are pretty like sitcom-y based. So you get like, the twin bosses are feuding. They paint a line down the middle of the workplace. Do your workday without getting fired. And like if you get, so you don't lose hit points, you lose demerits, or you gain demerits, I guess. And you're just trying to not get fired. So, it's obviously a commentary on AI being just shoved into everything. And we are very not AI people. So we're like, you know what, let's make a game about it.
Nice.
So, which is kind of like what we tend to do anyway. We're like, this topic is on our minds. How can we,
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask, do you have, I mean, I'm curious about the play loop of each one of these games. And I'm curious if it operates kind of similarly across games, or if you're doing it kind of bespoke game by game, because it feels like, Eternal Redux, we're talking D&D, so I'm imagining that's more like kind of your traditional adventure gaming kind of thing. I Got a Knife reminds me a lot of, obviously, like Brindlewood Bay and other kind of like mystery games, and those are very different kind of approaches. So yeah, I don't know, I'm curious as to whether or not there's like an overarching kind of design principle that goes into like designing the play loops, or if you're thinking about it game by game and kind of parsing it out individually.
Yeah, we kind of like each game, we kind of like go about it. I'm someone very like image based, so like I'll kind of start to like come up with like a few image ideas, and then that'll kind of like help determine like more of like the style of the game and stuff. Like beans the flammable fruit. That one's kind of like a little more wargamey. So, and it's pretty much a straightforward thing. You're just trying to escape this dungeon with the power of farts. So you eat beans, and how many beans you have in your belly determines how big your farts are. And as you fart more, you lose the beans, so your farts get lower and lower. So it's like that was like one of like the first kind of like versions of Diverse Die that we started, where it was like, all right, it's less of being able to like mess with it. It was a little more straightforward. But with like I Got a Knife, we added like a little more, where like there's different ways that you can regain your dice aside from just one simple way of like eating a bowl of beans. Like you can find one of your jilted lovers and see if you can sleep on their couch, but they might not want anything to do with you because the last time they saw you. And then there's also like sleuth dice, which the more clues you find increases like your dice with that too.
Yeah, which are modeling different things ultimately too,
Right.
like the murder versus the dungeon, sort of comical, but from a narrative standpoint, like well worn, like it's a dungeon based scenario versus I Got a Knife. You're trying to model. There's more there, I think, with social deduction and sort of realistic NPCs you'd have to worry about and all that. So there's more sort of written out about the rules, right, in terms of how to, not that it's a more complicated rolling or anything, but just how to adjudicate that. What kinds of sort of checks come up, essentially. And as you say, there's these different tweaks. I love that. I mean, that's very much the basis of what we do, too, is like having a base system or something fundamental that works, and then you can build on it and tweak it every time because, first of all, that's just fun. And then it can fit the story better.
Great.
So that's very cool, and they're also just very different genre-wise. So it's fun to see. Like the D&D stuff looks very good, like high fantasy, with, as you say, this kind of influence from mythology. But yeah, I'm curious about, I guess, how you pick up projects, and maybe that's a way to lead into what you're working on now. But how you decide sort of what you're going to do next, and how much time you've spent on kind of the system aspect, die versus die, versus like coming up with kind of standalone games versus, like you mentioned, you have a lot of one-page games, and like how do you sort of juggle that as an indie creator, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So what we kind of do is like each year, instead of doing like, you know, a New Year's resolution, we kind of like sit down and talk about what we've been like, what's been like catching our interests, like, you know, where we might want to like, you know, head towards for things. We do have like, you know, Diverse Die, we're kind of slowly always working on and evolving. We've got another like fantasy version of it that we're going to be working on like later in the year. But it's kind of just like what, like, you know, what's happening currently in society, what's, you know, show or thing I'm obsessed with at the time. And then, like, for example, what I'm currently working on, Knights in White Satin, is literally just, since I was a kid, my misunderstanding of what the title was, and spending like pretty much like 30 years imagining a very specific scene of, you know, this knight on horseback on a cliff with the wind blowing and like this obnoxiously long bolt of satin just like whipping around and stuff like that. And then a couple years ago realized it was knights, not knights, and had like a slight mental breakdown. And then was like, okay, I need to do something about this. I was like, this image needs to get out of my head. I need, like, it has to be done. And at Page, we were next to Shadowdark and spent like all weekend chatting and everything. And they were like, you could totally do like a third party Shadowdark module. Your style would like fit really well with it. And I was like, well, I have been thinking of this one game that I think would work pretty well with it. So then, you know, I like tweaked the ideas a little bit to like fit more for, you know, Shadowdark style of play, and just started hunkering down. I will spend sometimes Sean will have to yell at me because I'll be like working like 12 hours a day, like 7 days a week. And he's like, you need to take a break. And I'm like, but I just need to get it out. Like, it needs to get out of my head so, you know, I can live.
I think that's a pretty understandable, pretty relatable statement, I think, at least for Wythe and I.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of why people do indie work too, is to be able to do the specific thing you want. And then the paradox is, unlike a company where you might be doing something you don't like, they also are maybe more stable economically. So it's like you're doing just what you want to do, but it's like not as stable. So there's all that sort of managing those realities and those emotions alongside the sort of fun of what's the next project, what's the next high of creation and collective storytelling, and can I make it better? Can I make it cooler? So that's awesome. It's also cool. Yeah, we saw you guys there. I mean, Page, which is the Philadelphia Area Game Expo outside. It's not really in Philly, which happens in the dead of winter.
Right. and it's always my birthday weekend, and it always snows on my birthday. So I was like, it's going to snow. And of course it did.
Lo and behold.
Right.
Lo and behold.
Lo and behold. God.
But we always meet such lovely people, and it's one of those strange things where like the con is great because there's all these great indie creators huddling in the cold inside this massive. It's also at the same time as the state cheerleading championship. So dear listener, if you're not in the Philadelphia area, imagine all the TTRPG designers of the Northeast sort of next to a much louder group of moms yelling like "Go, go, go!" And it's like you can hear it all day.
Yeah, throughout the entire hall,
yeah.
you can hear like
right. Yeah. At the hotel we were staying at, it was funny because there was also like some like high school wrestling tournament that was going on too, and it was like all of us like game designers like coming down to like check out the breakfast stuff, and then it was just like, you know, like teenage boys, and we're all like, oh no, they're gonna smell the nerd on us. Like, oh no, like quick, get your coffee and run. Like,
nerds are cool now, though. I've heard. I'm told. I don't know. I have no idea what younger people think, but
I think there's like different valences of that, though. It's like, you know, it's all got to be in context.
Right.
But, to be fair, I cross the street when I see middle school and high school kids, just in general. So, I can't blame you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that all to say, that was all just to say the serendipity of, you and Roderick were near the Shadowdark folks, and we're all, they're all what's now the Analog Union was in one area. Got to meet, Stations, Adam Good, who now we've had on the show. So there was a number of folks who like vaguely aware of, or I'm happy to discover, and just kind of standing around in the cold with variously sized groups of people milling about. Because again, it is not actually in Philly, and it's an inopportune weekend for everyone involved. But it is interesting how these things can lead to like design ahas and collaborations. And, like Chris, you had some really good ideas for Stillfleet 2. Just sitting in a Uber out, in the cold.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those interesting things about the way that this works when it's not like, oh, I go to an office 9 to 5 or something, right? You're always on the clock. I mean, for good or for bad. Also, I'm glad you did. I'm glad everyone is doing, and everyone should be doing, anti-AI games about how work has become unworkable. Because I think this is like the main theme for, specifically, I should say, in the global north for American workers. Like around the world, there's lots of other problems that are bigger. But I think for many of us who just like wanted to work a job and have been like, man, this really sucks. It feels like almost I can't just get a job and work a job and go home. Like they've made that impossible. That should, it's amazing that everyone hasn't been like, I need to make a game about this.
Right.
So just reflecting
how
on
else,
that. Yeah.
How, like, who can afford therapy? Like, this is,
Right. Yeah. What doctor are you going to go to that you can actually afford? So instead, make a one-page game.
Yeah, make a one-page
grid system game jam.
right?
Sorry, this is the most cynical transition.
Work out your trauma with the best group therapy that you can afford, your TTRPG home group.
Yep. But someone's probably going to cancel. So.
Well, that's why you need the one-shot solution. Once again,
exactly, right?
It's coming back full circle. That's why we need a one-shot ecosystem, is for when you are in need of deep trauma dumping, but your one friend who always cancels, at least you can embody a different character for a few hours, if not for a full campaign. That's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Sorry, this just turned kind of grim, but
no, this is partly what the show's about. Sorry, Mel, we should have said, but yeah, no, this is great.
I wanted to delve a little bit more into Knights in White Satin, or Knights in White Satin. We've, like Wythe had mentioned earlier, you're kind of running the gambit on genre. I am curious, like, are you approaching this? I'm assuming it's Shadowdark. It's got to be your kind of classic high fantasy background, but like how are you approaching that? I feel like there's a spin on it. I feel like there's an in joke somewhere. So yeah, I'm curious. How are you kind of like interpreting the very grim dark kind of style of Shadowdark, and how are you putting into that Meldar style?
Yeah. So pretty much everything that you encounter in this dungeon is inspired by the Late Lament poem at the end of the Moody Blues song.
That's awesome.
And so and it didn't initially start out to go so Cronenberg-y, but once I started like designing the creatures, it was like instant, like, all right, body horror, weird gelatinous blobs, like,
oh yeah,
the impassioned lovers. That sounds like something that should be so nice, and but they've been stuck in the same acts over and over again, so now they're like a blob with two hearts that beat in tandem.
That's awesome.
But if you get too close, it might try to assimilate you, and then you become part of the, gibbering mouther-esque, creature.
It's one of my favorite words, gibbering.
Right? It's a good one.
Yeah.
And then, so with like how Shadowdark is, very focused on like light and the lack of it, I've utilized color as like an aspect to that. So like, you start off the dungeon, like the rooms are full color, everything you encounter. And then the closer you get to where the big bad is, which is affectionately named the Moody Blue Knight, the closer you get to where they're located, the more color leaves. So you eventually end up, with everything black and white. And then there's also like an element of poetry in it, so that like, since it's kind of inspired by the poem at the end, it kind of is something where like the moody blue night and their love that disappeared, they used to like, their whole thing was they would write like copious love letters to each other. And so it's something where like each room has a poem specifically that talks about like what's going to be in the room. Maybe there's some warnings in the poem. Sometimes it's just, talking about like, this is a place that you can rest type thing. And then there's also an element where players are searching for poem pieces. And if they can collect enough of them, it'll give them a benefit in their, ultimate fight against the moody blue night. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, also, satin itself is pretty important in the game because it's everywhere. And it can sometimes, hinder the party. There's also a chance that it can turn light against the party by the possibility of blinding it, because satin is a very glossy fabric.
Shiny. Yes. Yeah, it's got that shine.
Right, yep. I get like real into the research for things, and like in one of the Tarot Redux campaigns, I spent like a whole week researching like the Dewey Decimal System just for like a single joke that only like librarians would get and stuff like that. So like I was doing that again with this, like being like, okay, well, like what makes satin the way it is, and it's the way it's weaved and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll like throw in some like loom traps, but then I was like, all right, I can't get like too caught up in this, one specific thing.
I don't know. Loom trap's pretty good. That's pretty fun.
Right.
Are there NPCs that are letters that were never sent? I'm looking at the lyrics to Nights in White Satin.
Right. Not necessarily that. The like letters never sent are more like, the bits of poems.
The clues. Yeah,
that you can find. It's funny, there is a reoccurring NPC that I begun putting in every single one of our games, and he's called Mongus, and it's actually a character that Sean played in one of our D&D campaigns that our DM just kept bringing back. And so eventually I was like, all right, well, I'm going to bring this guy back in my campaign. And then it just became a running joke where I was like, in every game he's going to show up, and Sean's protested against it, but now he's just accepts it.
No, it's canon.
Yeah. So like, and he's a coward and very will do anything to keep himself alive type thing. So that's always like a good character to throw in.
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah. He's inspired by Rimmer from Red Dwarf.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, that's very funny. It was making me think of, I don't know if you and Sean are big like video game nerds or anything, but like in all of FromSoft's games, they always have the one character Patches who shows up, who is like, it's always the same character model. He's always like a bald, pale dude in black. And he's exactly that. He's just like a complete coward who's like, oh, please don't kill me. But then he'll try to kill you anyway, whatever. I like that idea of like the reoccurring character, even if it's completely different story, completely different world. But like, it's like, no, that this is a Meldar16 jam because it's got Mongus in it.
Yep.
Well, the hallmarks, there's certain tropes, like poets will use certain words or
Right.
phrases, and directors will use, whatever. You could find these analogies, but I love that in TTRPGs, it's just like weird, creepy little guys who might spook you.
Yeah, our fucked up little dudes.
It makes me think of, in the OG Stillfleet playtest campaign, my buddy Scott played a character named Dammy Gammels, who was a teen who is has been totally right-wing pilled by the company, the evil company you all work for and are supposed to hate. But he's like, no, I love the company. And he was just a thief who wanted to run away, and he had like a loot or whatever. Like, he didn't do any Space Marine stuff. He just was running away and stealing. And when he died, he just made like the same character and was like, well, he's a clone. Like, there's there's like, it's a psyop. He doesn't know that he's being created in the archive.
He's being Mickey 7'd.
Yeah, to to help, make sure that everyone is aware. It's like right-wing propaganda. It's just chaos. So I love that could be like, there could be a Dammy Gambles in any of our scenarios, just kind of out there being a dick, being the counterpoint to the actual, scenarios thrust. But very fun to do it if it's Sean, like, to kind of, give a little nod to your partner there.
Yeah.
I guess. Do you want to say a little about Knights in White Satin in terms of what how people can participate, what they should do, when is that coming up, and do you? I mean, maybe a separate question is, how do you play test? Do you have a group?
That's what I was going to ask, is if there was any play testing for Knights.
We're probably going to put it up on the Discord, but it's usually we have a couple different gaming groups that we utilize for our playtesting. And oftentimes, like, what we'll do is, like, Sean and I will playtest it, just, like, the two of us. If it's, like, possible to do that. Like, I Got a Knife, we did it, just the two of us, and then, like, moved it to a bigger gaming group. And so that way that we can, like, tell, how to, like, do different levels for, like, smaller groups versus bigger groups. Having stuff that's able to be played with only two people is very nice, because a lot of times, people are always like, oh, I can't, find a group, so I never play anything, But we actually just did some playtesting on Friday and went through. We're going to probably try and get it out end of summer. And we're actually going to be running it at 20-sided Tankard at Broken Goblet Brewery in Bensalem, PA in August. And yeah, we're not always like the best like public game runner, but we're going to give it a try.
I'm sure it'll be a delight for those who jump in.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'd never heard of 20-sided Tankard in Bensalem, PA, but there you go. It's free. Not a sponsor, just a place to go and play Knights in White Satin.
A place we've never been.
Yeah.
Sponsor us if you hear this. You're legally obligated to now.
Become one of the million businesses with 20-sided in the name. Sorry.
That's right.
Right. Well, it's funny because like if we're doing like events that aren't like games, like, con specific, I've made a giant D20 that like we've stuck on a stick that we'll put it on like our giant spinny rack or just like hold it as like a mace and stuff, because people like, if they see a D20, they're like, well, I kind of know what your stuff is, more or less, so we're always joking that it's like the bat signal for tabletoppers.
Oh, we should do that. Even though we don't use D20s in our games, we should just make a bunch of D20 gear just to represent for the hobby.
We've had people that are like, oh, if you make this like as like a mace, like for real, we'll buy it. And I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a mace printer? Is that in the future of Meldar16? Yeah.
The mace. Yeah. Do you have a 3D printer that you can make mace stars?
I used to actually have a 3D printer, but this one I just did like foam board. Like, found a template, like a flat template of it, printed it out, cut it, glued it, painted it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of pretty balanced.
Yeah, like rollable or just
yeah, because I made like the big one, and then I made like a slightly smaller one that we didn't stick on a stick, and like that one we get like people to roll and stuff, and it's generally balanced.
Nice, yeah. That's a good Amazon review, like kind of pretty balanced.
Yeah, right? Good enough.
Right?
It's a bullet point, a feature.
It rolls either like a 14 or a 7, but at least it's not just one of those.
Yeah, that's better than just rolling ones all the time. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
The illusion of randomness is all I ask for, really.
Right.
I want to be mindful of time and make sure, Mel, if there's anything we haven't touched on. I love a lot of the themes that have come up, and just to shout out, we've had a lot of good discussions around music, and Knights in White Satin, I think, is actually in keeping with some of these other discussions we've had about music inspiring whole games, like Tales from the Tape Deck with Yamil Camacho. We talked about with Roderick, obviously his interest in music. And I think it's fun that you took one misreading of one song basically and made a whole ass game of it. So that's fun. But beyond that, any other themes, anything we haven't covered, anything coming up you want to shout out that we should know about?
I don't know. Yeah.
That's all right.
No, that's perfectly good. Yeah. We talked about a lot.
But, yeah. Honestly, like I really only listen to like, so while I'm working, I'm watching Columbo or really bad horror movies. Favorite franchises are Final Destination and Scream.
Nice.
And then it's like that, or I'm listening to Wax Fang, which is like, yeah. And like, it's like, so our car has a CD player and we have other CDs, but I refuse to put them in. So Sean's always like, can we put a different CD in? And I'm like, no, I'm driving. I get to decide.
Them's the rules in these here. Unidas Estadio. I don't know how to say it.
Estados Unidos.
That's the one. That's what I was going for. Okay. Shout out to Waxwing. Shout out to Sean. Big Sean in the house somewhere, presumably. Shout out to Sean the Picard.
Big Sean. I like that.
Chris, do you wanna close us off with our traditional final question? Right after I remind folks, including Mel, of course, Melanie, you're quite invited. We are running the first ever Grid System Game Jam. We have third-party licenses for all our games. Super commercial friendly. Do whatever you want. And we'd love for other game designers who are cool. So everyone who's been on the show, everyone who lurks in the chat, to make something using any of our games, any of the mechanics of the Grid System. And it's just a whole summer-long thing. And we have some cool guest judges who are not us. We're going to read everything, and then we'll give away stuff and or just be like, hey, you want a jam, right? That's a nice thing to say. That sounds good.
Right? Yeah.
Give away a hearty slap on the back.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you hear this,
we're not flush.
Still going on. Oh yeah, no, there are cash prizes. I think the best writing and best art get cash,
yes,
and then the best overall gets cash plus. We will offer to print it as a zine, which I don't think we're offering. To be clear, on air, to print it by hand.
No, that's not in the agreement. That's not in the agreement. We're sending that off somewhere. Sorry.
Yeah,
we took the easier route as far as that. Well,
so far,
we'll see. It's different. Yeah. I think it's just different approaches to insanity, really.
Yeah.
It just depends on how you want to spend your time being a crazy person, really.
Right.
But no, we've got our first game jam coming up. Please join us. Please submit something. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be writing something. I know some other folks from our team are, and like Wythe said, we're not judging it, which allows us to participate and to get to just take a look at all the fun stuff that's out there.
Not for prizes though. We can't win.
Oh no, we're not winning it. We're not competing.
I mean, you guys could high five yourselves.
Yeah, we'll high five each other. Yeah.
That's
sure.
True. That's true.
That's a given for sure. But no, we are not competing. We'll be submitting just for funsies. But yeah, drop your stuff in. Let us know what you want to do with the Grid System. It's great. It's a great system. I'm biased. Deal with it. Anyway, Mel, it has been so lovely having you on. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can folks find you online? Where can they buy your stuff? Where can we best support Meldar16 in all of your DIY endeavors?
So all of our print stuff is on our website, Meldar16.com. We also have a itch account, which is also Meldar16. We have all of our PDF stuff there. We even have some like free downloads, pay what you want stuff. And then we try to make it to, East Coast gaming conventions. So I know like the next couple weeks we've got, Game Face Con, which will now be in the past when this airs, but also Concoctions in Vineland, New Jersey. We'll be in Massachusetts in October for Arcane Con, probably be at PAX. Yeah, pretty much any like event that like Severed Books puts on in Baltimore, we make a trip down for. Cool people down there. Yeah, hell
yeah. We love Baltimore. We love Severed Books. We love Roderick McSino. I can't think of anybody else from Baltimore right now, but
Yeah, we're fans of the whole developing scene. Like I keep thinking, from roughly the middle of New Jersey down through Baltimore, there's just a ton of cool indie artists making specifically tabletop games, specifically story-based games, and cool, adventuresome, old school inspired, but not just old reskinnings of those games in the TTRPG tradition. So Mel, really nice to meet you and know about your work as well, also in that same general region. So without doxing, if you are somewhere near the state of Pennsylvania, you could maybe find us. We will be at a bunch of small cons, and we hope to know more about some of the ones you're checking out and find out some of these fine places like 20-Sided Tankard. Never heard of that. Been saying PA. So super cool that there are a lot of one thing it just seems like is there's so many groups, small groups getting together and having fun, and also making a small amount of money, but trying to make enough to at least, if not live on, then support, have some supplementary income through game creation, running games, in a professional manner. I mean, actually doing it well. Mm-hmm. And that's really cool. It gives me a lot of hope to sort of see us all find each other and try to help each other out. So thanks for that, and thanks for being on our little tiny piece of it here on Why We Roll.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
No worries. Any other last thoughts, Mel, Chris? Okay.
A resounding silence.
The meeting's officially adjourned.
Original series is the best Star Trek. I know those are fighting words.
Oh, shots taken.
Right. There's so many people that are like, yeah, we're not going to check out her stuff now.
Yeah, they were about to click buy.
Check
out. And they're like, nope, just exit out.
Well, we'll find out when you look at the sales numbers and let us know later. Until then, it's been Mel from Meldar16, Chris, and I'm Wythe. And thanks to Vex in the chat. And we'll talk to everybody next time on Why We Roll.
Live long and prosper. Oh, just one more thing. That's a Columbo joke. Good night.
Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You can find us on all social media at Stillfleet. You can find out more about Danse Macabre, Stillfleet, and all of our games over at stillfleet.com.
Thanks for listening to Why We Roll.
Our theme music is by the brilliant Sam Tyndall and Arpline.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.